Well, hello and welcome, people of the internet, to yet another Zombie Survivor. Today, however, I'm not going to be playing live, so the footage you're seeing has all been pre-recorded. I'm just sitting here talking with myself. As I mentioned in the previous video covering this update, I wanted to make another one, or basically the next video I was going to make was specifically going to be about the changelog. As I think I had mentioned, there was a changelog in the email that I received, giving me access to this private beta. Unfortunately, the link was incorrect, so I was kind of waiting on that to kind of confirm a bunch of stuff as far as this update goes and what's changed. We do have access to that now, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to both play and read this and talk about it at the same time. So yeah, that's way more explanation than you guys need. As far as the gameplay goes, basically, my goal was to try and start with SWAT, because I had unlocked his additional tier abilities, as well as going for medic, because if I remember correctly, medic medic doesn't synergize with SWAT, but medic does synergize with tank. Tank is the third character that I was looking to go with, mostly again just to try the to get some synergy there, because basically medic and tank synergy, it makes it so that what is his power up again? It's like relentless. Is that what it is? It's here, let me see. Tank, I have the game up as well so I can see. Fury Unleashed. So when you use Fury Unleashed, you get a little bit of health regen with that synergy. And of course, trying to get the new evolutions going on tank. In this build, it ended up being a little bit weird because I didn't have the rerolls ready to get tank, so I ended up skipping a couple times. And funny enough, I think it actually shows how powerful the SWAT's turret evolution is. You guys will see that when it comes up, but it almost single-handedly carried the run for me. But anyway, yeah, enjoy the gameplay while we talk about these. I'm going to put the changelog on the video or on screen as well, so you can read along with me, read ahead, however you may want to do it, but just so that way it's a little bit easier to follow along. Now, as far as starting, I'm just going to read this top to bottom. So we have the new stat systems, which we went over in the first video, the global and per survivor stats. So now the tree, well, it's kind of been split into two. It's kind of the same thing, just adding on survivor trees, right? So we do have the entire general tree. And one thing I want to clarify from the last video was that health regen is still a part of the tree. I was all sad that it wasn't. It is. It's just in that fourth slot. There's actually a lot of other upgrades in that fourth tier. So you have an additional badge slot. You have your item pool customization. That's where that is. Immunity after hit. You have movement speed, weapon critical damage, weapon damage, ability area, health regen. That goes to +5 per second. You have ability crit damage, ability damage, and finally damage against bosses. So that's all the fourth tier stuff. You also have diminishing returns for most stats, no more ceilings or caps. Now, this is something that, because I'm only 15 hours into the game, so a lot of this kind of more like, I'll call it sweaty mechanics. I hadn't delved in too far, but apparently there were caps for certain stats. Those are no longer there. Now you'll have some diminishing returns. I don't have exact information on this yet, or I don't even know if I will. There's probably people who are sweatier when it comes to numbers than I am. I just like to blow stuff up. So, but keep in mind that that is now there. Military training now offers more greater survivor stat bonuses. This is something that we definitely experienced the first time around, and I think this is a good thing, especially with the new system where military training has to be applied to one specific survivor, which is a little bit different, especially considering the fact that it does... This is kind of giving to me, it's giving like a little bit of, I don't know, identity crisis, because to me it feels like the squad should be the squad. So any stats you get should apply to everyone. I do understand that can be a little bit busted, right? You get like weapon crit and it gives 10% weapon crit. Well, if it applies to the whole team, you're kind of getting weapon crit plus 30%, right? So maybe they found that the balance there was a little off and they wanted to nerf things a little bit, but also, they had to kind of compensate, so they buffed a lot of the military training, since you're only giving it to one character. That being said, it kind of helps out a little bit because it it basically makes it so that you can focus on one character, which is kind of what I did in this run. I kind of just focused on SWAT, really. I ended up getting his turrets evolved. I got his grenade trail evolved, and his, yeah, I actually got everything evolved. Everything except for Ricochet. I didn't realize that I didn't have Ricochet unlocked for this one, so I did try to evolve it later on in the run. Unfortunately, yeah, obviously I didn't have it unlocked, so I couldn't get it. But I was able to pump up 3 of his abilities and, you know, really focus on ability cooldown reduction, and it just made, and duration, and it made the turrets go crazy. So the fact that you can kind of focus now on one character is basically what they've done is they've allowed you to either go like a complete rainbow build and focus, not really focus, but kind of work on everybody simultaneously, or like hard focus one character and then have 2 other survivors there as kind of support, especially with the weapon tag system, which we'll go over in a bit. But yeah, it's kind of opened up builds a little bit more in that sense, I think. But yeah, we also have infinite level up upgrades now offer stronger bonuses for random survivors. I think this is great. One of the things, now to be fair, one of the things I noticed, yes, the infinite level up upgrades were definitely really weak. I think these are going to be much more noticeable, or you're going to notice them more in endless mode, because based on the 4 or 5 games that I've played so far in default setting, you're not going to be playing long enough. Unless you're getting crazy XP bonuses, you're not going to be playing long enough to get to these stat bonuses. You're still going to be trying to max out your skills. So it's going to matter more in endless, where the gameplay is longer. But yeah, they were pretty small percentage points. We're talking like 1 or 2%, and especially once you get to that point, your level is going to be so high anyway. It's going to take some time to actually gain those levels. So increasing those level up offers, I think, is a nice little addition. New stat bonus calculation equation. I'm not even going to pretend to know why that is important, but it's there for you guys who care. New Horde AI. This is definitely one that I noticed, although I wasn't exactly sure what was going on in the first game. In the first video, I definitely noticed there was a difficulty spike, and based on what I've been seeing by other people who are playing this version, they've also noticed that there is a difficulty spike, likely coming from this. So enemies now work together to surround the player. That is something that I actually commented on in the last video, is that it, mixed with the fact that zombies find blind spots around the player and try to fill the gaps. That was something I definitely noticed, is that I was getting swarmed a lot more often, and it was getting it was much more difficult to find my way out, and that is likely why. The AI is now working on closing those gaps, making it more difficult to escape. If anything, that just makes me want to dash more. But it is definitely manageable. You can definitely get around it. It's not like impossible. Once you figure out the slightly different kind of build system you have to go with this version, it's definitely reasonable. Now, to compensate for that, fastest enemies are now slower, so runner zombies are going to be a lot slower. And I think that this is definitely a necessary change, mixed in with the other 2 AI changes, right? I think runner zombies were challenging before, but I think if they were the same speed with this new AI, I think they might be a little bit too annoying and a little bit too strong. You definitely, like, you could outrun them with a few movement perks, but before you had the movement speed before, they could still outrun you. You could obviously gun them down, but now if they're just going to like flank you and pinch you, oh boy, that would be a little bit tough. Meta progression rework. 1 general skill tree. Old system of cash are now training points. I'm going to keep reading through all these and then we'll go over them. So skill trees for each survivor. New leveling system is now specialization. Upgrades and synergy nodes between different survivors. More nodes and higher levels will come in future updates. Max skill tree levels equal to the amount of skill points possible to receive, which will be increased with future updates. Previously earned training points transfers directly up to the max number of skill points needed to 100% the old skill tree, up to 475 skill points. So yeah, the system has basically changed overall. We took a really quite a lengthy deep dive into that in the previous video, and if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. We kind of, you know, for the most part, the tree is kind of the same, right? It's kind of the same tree as we had before, except that it's turned 90 degrees and it looks horizontal rather than vertical. The UI has obviously changed a bit, so, you know, no longer do we have all the little diamonds to indicate what level things are. Now it's just number based, which I do kind of wish they kept that on the skills themselves when you're in game. It kind of shows, because the way that the UI is now, it's all numbers, right? You see 1 through 4. But if you were a new player and you didn't know that 4 was the maximum, you have no indication of what the max level is. So that is something that I kind of liked the four diamond system. It was kind of more unique to this game. Not that it's like, you know, crazy unique or special design or anything, but it was just something, you know, maybe it's the nostalgia of it. But I have actually noticed a couple people also have mentioned that they kind of wish that system would come back. So maybe they bring that back. We'll see. And even if you bring it to 4, the 5th evolution, you know, you could make a little special star on the end, and then it's a balanced triangle. It's no longer you know, missing some length on the right side. Yeah, so you have your specialization now. I don't remember if it mentions it later on, but when it comes to money, when it comes to your cash, which now money is cash, they've renamed that. That's later in the changelog. When it comes to that, when you're during runs, one of the things that could feel really bad before is, let's say you're pretty far advanced in your skill tree, and you're trying to get, you know, 3,700 cash for one training point, and let's say you end the level at 3,600. Well, that can feel pretty bad when you end, and then you have to all of a sudden start the next round at 0, essentially losing you $3,600. Now that is completely changed. So any cash you have at the end of your previous run will carry over to your new run. So there's no need to feel bad anymore. You'll have that starting. I think that actually happens. I mean, you can go to the beginning of this gameplay and you'll notice that I already have some cash. So that is super nice. That was something that I was hoping would see changed, because 3,600 cash is no joke. That's a lot of cash to pick up. So the fact that that has now been addressed is fantastic. New survivor leveling system. The specialization bar fills from time spent on the field and upgrades acquired on each survivor. This is something I didn't realize. I thought it was just general experience for completing, but the more time you spend specializing in a character, the faster they're going to level up. So obviously if you pick them first, there's a specialization meta progression in the skill tree that you can take to get them up even faster, but also focusing on them in battle. After this run, you'll see I got a crazy amount of SWAT levels, and that is likely because I just focused him hard, got 3 of his 4 abilities evolved, and got his weapon up to tier 3, not maxed out, but was really kind of focusing him hard on this run, and it shows in the end. We got him very much leveled. So it does seem like leveling is much easier and much quicker in this version as opposed to the previous version where it was just based on kills. It took a long time. It was kind of grindy. You just kind of had to go in endless and just survive a bunch. I think this is a much more straightforward way. It's still a way to specialize in survivors that you want to level up, but in a way that is more, we'll say, more dopamine friendly, right? Because in the previous version where you had to get 20,000 kills to go from tier 2 to tier 3, that could be, you know, it's probably 2 to 3 different endless runs depending on how long you can last, right? And I'm basing that on you lasting about 25 to 30 to 35 minutes. If you're not there yet and you're only surviving maybe 15 to 20 minutes, it's probably going to take you 4 or 5 runs before you see any improvement. So the fact that with this system, you know, you are getting a couple points here or there as you're leveling up. Tiers are obviously happening at, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40. But the fact that now you have kind of these interim points that you can spend on leveling up your guns and getting stronger, I think is a much more friendly system and allows you to kind of feel the progression slowly over time, because you're getting 2 or 3 levels here or there as opposed to just one giant level after, you know, an hour and a half of gameplay. So much needed change. Definitely appreciate that. Specialization is separate from cash and training points, so that is just indicating that the main skill tree currency is different from those. So you get specialization points after you end a run, whereas cash and training points, those are, well, basically synonymous, right? They used to be training points, now it's cash, or it used to be cash, now it's training points. Either way, it's just saying that it's separate now. Each additional survivor receives a percentage of the share. So I'm with this, I'm still not exactly sure how it works. So, for example, with this run, with SWAT being focused on, let's just say he's getting a total of 100,000 experience. I'm just going to use a large number here to break it up. Does that mean that all the experience gets funneled into him, and then let's say 25% goes to each other survivor? So would that mean that he gets 50,000 experience and then 25,000 experience goes to each survivor? Or does it mean that he gets 100,000 experience, then based on the leveling of the two survivors, they get maybe, let's say, I don't know, 60,000 and 30,000, obviously because one came much later and I invested in them less. Not sure. And then the third option is the same as the second option, but now do they get a small percentage of that 100,000 because SWAT is in the lead? I haven't gotten like 100% clarification on that, but those are kind of the three instances that I could see happening. But regardless, the two other survivors that you have are still getting specialization points, and that's kind of the most important thing, right? Before, where we were just going for kills, only the leader was getting level up experience. Now it can be spread amongst your party, which is a much needed change, way better. Different game modes, maps, and difficulty levels have different specialization point gain modifiers, and previously earned survivor ranks transfer directly into the new system's rank. So any progression that you had previously is going to directly transfer over. Obviously, you're going to have to respend your points and reallocate them, but any progress you made is going to carry over. You just have to reallocate those points. New badge system. Select badges before starting the game to receive stat boosts, unlock new badges from Survivor skill tree, and use badges to customize each run to your liking. I do like this system. I think, so this system, it's familiar to us. We've seen this kind of like change your run based on different difficulty settings before. It's one of those that, like, you obviously have to choose whether or not you want to be upgrading your guns, adding specialization, adding evolutions, adding synergies, or do you want to be adding badges? Because badges are also included in this specialization system. I almost wish... I would have to think about this, but I almost wish the badge system was just tied to an achievement system. So that way you could just kind of unlock them as you go rather than needing, because you're kind of spread, you're spread a little bit thin already between wanting to level up your weapons, level up your abilities, then, like I said, grab the evolutions or grab the synergies. So maybe it's a little bit of wanting to do everything with this new version of the game. But there's definitely a lot. It does seem a little bit like your specialization points might be spread a little bit thin, especially at the start or even middle point when you're unlocking everything. So I do kind of wish they were achievement based, and that would also give you another thing to do because now we have difficulties to unlock. But once you kind of go through the maps and you go through the 5 different game modes, you're kind of done for the most part unlocking stuff. So I kind of wish there was another element of things to unlock, and I think that if you tied badges to that, tied them to different gameplay achievements, that could give you another kind of angle to go ahead and add some depth to your gameplay. New difficulty system. Customize your run by selecting the difficulty level. New difficulty levels are unlocked by completing the previous ones on each map and game mode. So that is kind of the answer to what I was just suggesting. The fact that now each game mode also has 3 difficulties. So rather than just completing it once, now you're going to have to complete it 3 times in order to get your difficulty all the way up. Higher difficulties are harder, but offer better cash/specialization rewards. Makes sense. Currently offers basic scaling modifiers with more advanced changes and difficulty levels coming in future updates. So, you know, while the difficulty mode or the gameplay, the different gameplay modes might not be something that is implemented right now, kind of like what I was talking with the badges, different difficulty levels coming in future updates might be kind of what I'm looking for, especially if you're someone who is looking for that challenge, right? It's kind of, it's like one of those things where you don't want to complete all the maps, complete all the game modes, right? And then before there were difficulty settings, you'd be like, oh, well, I'm done. So why do I need to keep playing and keep unlocking things? Basically, you want to make sure that your players can continually unlocking things as they're getting through all their skill trees. You don't want them to finish their skill tree or I shouldn't say that. You don't want them to complete all the content before they finish completing the skill tree. You want to kind of keep those two things balanced, so that way one isn't finished before the other, and it basically gives people a reason to continue playing. 56 new ability evolutions, 2 ultimate upgrades for every ability, which is sweet. Now, I do think that some are going to be more powerful than others, and that is only going to be reasonable considering these are brand new. So there's probably going to have to be a trial period. You know, the beta is coming out to you guys this upcoming Wednesday. So that is the answer. I know that it kind of came delayed, but I did put it in a comment in my previous video. But yes, this upcoming Wednesday is when everyone will get to try this new beta version. Likely, they're going to be collecting a bunch of data to see, you know, what is good and what isn't. I do think that some of even the base abilities that have been added in are not as powerful as maybe they should be, but we'll go over that in the next section. As far as evolutions go, I am very, very happy they added these. The abilities as they were previously were getting a little bit stale to me. Just leveling up to max, there was no like payoff for getting them to max. So having this payoff, even if you're not upgrading them further, and even if you could upgrade them further, I'm not sure you would want to. Unless you're in endless, there's just like not enough time to do everything you want. So having that evolution is really nice. And again, tying that in with the damage types, which we're going to go over again in a future section, allows you to further customize your gameplay and customize your teams in ways that you really couldn't do before. So I really appreciate this change. Revamps of passive bonus abilities. So this is something that I am glad they did, because I was not a fan of previous passive abilities. So except for one, there is one that I do like. But so Huntress, Eagle Eye, weapon crit chance is now gone. It is turned into Bear Trap, which is kind of similar to the tank's mines, but basically just it rather than having an explosion, it keeps enemies trapped where they are. Ghost has lost protocol critical, so no longer is he going to be giving ability crit chance and crit rate. Instead, he has Pulsar, which is kind of roughly similar to the Engineer's electrocution ability. Basically, it's just an AoE around the characters doing electric damage. Really like this change. Just adds a little bit more electric damage into Ghost's kit and allows him to synergize a little bit more with Engineer, who, you know, 2 characters that I really enjoy playing together. Now, Medic. Medic, we lost Transplantology and Field Surgery. Transplantology, I don't care about missing, or don't care about losing. Field Surgery, I did enjoy. I do like my health regen. Now, there are a couple ways you can get your health regen back. Obviously, once you get up to tier 4 in your general skill meta progression, you'll get it there. But the Medic also has a badge for health regeneration. Now, it's not like super powerful. It's definitely been toned down a bit, but you can still get it if you want to. And we get Medical Drone and Experiment in 21. Now, Medical Drone is, I've found it's kind of okay. Basically, it's just a drone that follows you around and shoots things. When you stop moving, you get a little bit of health regeneration. Now, the health regeneration is very small. It starts with like 1, and I think it might give you 1 additional point per level. So you're up to 4 per second. And then when it evolves, it can turn into either an offensive, a completely offensive or completely defensive drone rather than a mix. So the offensive It does do basically one shot that's quite powerful. I think it does 200 damage, but it is kind of slow. It's about 2 shots a second, which sounds like reasonably fast, but in practice it's a little slow. But overall, it's a nice little damage bonus to the medic. The defensive option basically gives you 1 instance of damage protection every 30 seconds, basically a little shield, and will also just give you that static health regen. So if you do like the health regen, that is the way you'd want to go. Experiment 21 is basically a new version of the medic's tier 3 weapons. So her cryo and chemical grenades, it's kind of just a second version of those. I'm gonna be honest, I am a little bit disappointed with these because we kind of already have it in her kit. You can just get it a little bit sooner. It's fine. It synergizes with, I think, if I remember correctly, Ghost, where if you have Ghost synergy ability, it allows her to throw 2 grenades rather than 1, and 1 will always be farther away. It's fine. You know, it's kind of like, are they better than the previous 2? I think likely. I do still like my field surgery, but yeah. And then experiment 21, when you evolve it, it's either going to be, so when you have it in base form, she'll throw 50-50 chemical or cryo grenades. When you evolve them, you get to choose one or the other. So if you just want extra damage, you can go with the chemical grenades, and if you just want more crowd control, you can go with just the freezing grenades as just an additional option to her mainline weapon once it's leveled up. New damage types and tags and their status effects. So we did talk a lot about these last time, so I'll go over them briefly. We have kinetic, which adds injured. We have slashing, which adds bleeding. We have electric, which adds electrified. Fire, which is burning. Ice, which is frozen. Chemical, toxified. And then just explosive damage is too good, so it doesn't get anything. Bleeding is basically damage over time, and whenever enemies are running at you, they have a chance of triggering it again, which makes sense. You don't want to move around while you're bleeding. Electrified has a small chance of stunning enemies. Burning is also damage over time, and I think, can it spread? I should jump into the game really quick to figure this out. Give me 2 seconds. Let me hop in. Boop, boop, boop. We're going quick. We're going quick. I'm clicking things faster. Okay, damage types. Let's see here. Let's pull this up. Burn. Burn receives 15 damage every half second. We have Ice, which has freeze, becomes slowed by 25%. We have Chemical, it receives 15 damage every 1 second, becomes slowed down for 10% for 5 seconds. Electrify, becomes stunned for 1 second. Kinetic increases all damage received by a percentage. We have, and that looks to be a 20% boost, but you also get a boost based on your damage type boost, which we'll talk about in a second. We have Bleed from slashing, receives 10, 5, or 2% damage based on enemy type, regular, elite, boss, of its max HP for every second for 5 seconds. And then, yeah, explosion is just explosion damage. So, yeah, so having new statuses here is definitely nice. It definitely adds a touch of differences to the damage types. And obviously we have 3 new ones in kinetic, slashing, and explosive. Yeah. So I like this. I like this a lot. I like having the statuses. Obviously, there's now damage type bonuses. So let's actually go into the damage type tag system. Every weapon, ability, and their upgrades that deal set damage type adds +1 to its tag. Each tag gives a damage type bonus and higher chance of applying its status effect. Additional effect when at 10 or more tags of each type. So it's kind of like an auto battler system where you have these like synergy bonuses. I really like these as well because they obviously benefit you from focusing on one damage type, but you know, you spread out your damage, and rather than having bonuses coming from, you know, items or military training improving your damage type, you're getting it from naturally having more tags of certain types. So having more damage of electric, basically every tag that you have is going to increase your damage of that type by 2%. Now it is a small boost, but it's also going to increase the chances of actually getting that status. So instead of a 10% chance, which everything naturally has, you're going to get an additional 1% per tag. So like I said, you're going to have benefits from spreading out your tags, and you're also going to have benefits from stacking one tag over and over again. I do really like this tag system. I think that it's a nice addition, and I also like the way they implemented it. One of the things I was confused about when I started playing was I figured like one ability. So like, for example, frag grenades. I figured frag grenades would just be one explosive tag. You level it all the way up, and then at level 5 or the evolution, let's say for example it turned into a cryo grenade, then it would add one tag of cryo and then lose the explosive. Well, it doesn't work like that. You still are going to have the 4 explosive tags from being level 4. It's just a matter of you're also now going to have a cryo tag. Now, grenades, the frag grenades don't have that, but I was just using that as an example. Item system rework. We're going to go fairly quickly through the rest of these. There's not a whole lot left that's important, and I'm just going to loop another gameplay behind this here. The item system rework. So rework for almost all existing items. Items are much more powerful on average. You can have up to 6 items at one time. Items can be replaced when obtaining more than 6. 9 new items and 8 old items are temporarily disabled to be updated. Item upgrading evolution is planned for future update. So item upgrading and evolution is pretty sweet that's going to come in a future update. Overall, I think the item change is, I mean, really all of these changes are very welcome. I don't think there's any of these changes I look at and I think on its face is overall bad. I think that the items as they are very powerful now. I will say that the spawn time does seem, it's definitely lower, right? Items definitely spawn less quickly, but that's okay because now the items, you know, you don't need to stack them. You don't need like 2 different versions of the Power Glove or 3 different versions of X or 4 different versions of Y, right? It's just one item, one upgrade. So you get them at the start at their most powerful as opposed to needing to get them multiple times. I really like this change. And the fact that you can switch out items. That was one of the things that I was concerned about when I saw you could only have 6, especially since there are going to be some items that you want to take in the beginning and then lose as the run runs later. So the fact that you can swap those out willy-nilly is really nice. Cash. Money collected is now saved between runs, so we have already talked about that at the beginning. Extermination mode, you can now receive cash for each wave cleared, and there's a whole number here. I haven't even played extermination mode yet, so I didn't even know that this was a change. Lockdown option is now a permanent general skill tree unlock and can be used indefinitely in gameplay. It's kind of a nice change. I really didn't like the lockdown system as it was before, where you had to use lockdowns, but having it free is that is the most reasonable change. Out of changing all the other modifiers, lockdown is easily the one that needed to be adjusted. Team Leader Survivor passive bonus removed. This system will be reworked and re-added in a future update. This is something it didn't even click to me was different in the last video, but yeah, the passive bonuses are no longer there, so be interested to see how they're reworked and how they are re-added, especially balancing them with badges, right? Because that's likely why they took them out, because you're kind of getting those bonuses coming from badges, so we'll see how that comes in the future. Weapon cooldown system improved for single ammo weapons, shotgun bow, katana axe, flasks, allowing for greater attack speed ceiling and smoother gameplay with these weapons. Gotta be honest, probably not even going to notice that's the thing. Balance changes to all weapons and abilities. Some notable examples. Most stats adjusted to take the new tag system and skill tree node upgrades into consideration. Many are weaker early, but much stronger late game on higher meta progression levels. Laser, blowtorch, flamethrower applies first damage instance faster. SWAT, for SWAT. Sniper rifle, attack range increased, further emphasizing its core strengths. Huntress, multi-shot, has 1 additional arrow projectile on rank 4. The medic flask, both flask types have +1 projectile on rank 4. And the second flask is always thrown at a greater distance. The medic syringe gun has up to 2 more syringes in its magazine, up from 2. Survivor unlock requirements have been adjusted, so you can get those probably either earlier or later. Those are the only 2 options. I guess it could be the same, but if you're considering that they've been adjusted, then obviously those are the only 2 options. New settings and options. Overall graphics quality, ground coverage, density, detail density, pause game and or mute audio when in the background, camera movement style, smooth or stuck in the center, controller vibrations for gameplay and interface actions, language terminology consolidation. So money is now cash. Magnet range is pickup range, which thank God I was getting so confused by that because you would think that when something says magnet range, it literally means like the magnet item, but the fact that this has now been clarified is very nice. The last two, honestly, I kind of wish they kept the same. So reload is now cooldown or weapon cooldown, and fire rate is now attack speed. I think the others kind of make more sense, although I think they're probably like this because things like the axe, things like the flasks, right? They don't really have a fire rate, and the axe doesn't reload. So that is likely why, just to kind of clarify those. New game save file name change, and then it's not possible to launch the game with use of different graphics API. Just kind of some small stuff there. The other thing, which I probably should have mentioned way earlier here, but one thing that I did clarify that is not in the changelog is that we kind of mentioned it before with items, but timers on the map have definitely been changed and are currently being adjusted. So the S.O.S timer has definitely been elongated. One thing that you probably noticed in the gameplay was that I ended up skipping 2 SOSs. I was trying to find tech. I was trying to like force tank. Maybe not the smartest idea because SOSs don't come around as often as they used to. So definitely keep that in mind. And yes, I haven't gotten exact numbers of how much they're adjusting it. And I do believe, based on what I heard from my contact, was that it's not locked in yet how much time there's going to be. I hope that they do reduce the timer a little bit between spawns. It does feel a little bit slow, especially if you decide to skip, like if you don't have any more rerolls. Although I think that really only matters to like people who are making content who are trying to force certain characters just to show them off. Otherwise, you would just take one of the ones that's offered to you. But especially in the beginning, you know, getting to about the 4.5 minute mark, although we did see in the first video that I did, it was more like 3.5. So somewhere in that 3.5 to 4.5 minute mark does seem a little bit slow, although it does allow you to kind of force yourself to build one character to be pretty strong and then kind of catch the second one up. But yes, that is confirmed. That is a change that they're working on, is working on these timers. So that is the full list. Now, because there was the spawn timers left off the list, it is possible that there's some other things that are left off. I'm hoping not. I think that might have been the only thing. It's the only thing that stood out to me. Now, that being said, you know, I think basically all of these changes are positive. Even the ones that I was kind of like, you know, I kind of liked how it was before. They're so minimal. I think overall this is a very, very good update. And the fact that a lot of the features, even some things that they took out, right, like the team leader bonus, they've addressed the fact that they are going to be coming back. They're just being reworked, likely because they need to be rebalanced with new stuff that is going to be added or is added. But I think that the changes that they've made have really, you know, opened up gameplay, and I think they're just going to continue doing so. I do wish that there was a little bit more. Like I said, I think the one thing that I'm looking for at this point, now that evolutions have become a thing, is opening up gameplay unlocks. So maybe switching badges over, like I said, to more of an achievement-based system rather than spending currency on them, because the currency for specialization points is already stretched kind of thin, and it would kind of give you another element to tackle unlocking things rather than just, you know, complete default on difficulty 1, then on difficulty 2, then on difficulty 3. Instead, you know, you could have like one character's crit rate be 150%. That's a lot. Maybe like 50%, right? I was thinking like I was thinking weapon damage starts 100%, so I was doing 50% math there. But stuff like that can kind of force you to play in slightly different ways and in order to unlock things. And I just like that system personally, but maybe some people don't. I don't know. Let me know. So what do you guys think about all these changes now that we've seen the complete changelog? You know, is there anything that you don't like? Is there anything that you wish stayed the same as it previously was? Or do you think this is just like a 100% in the right direction change? Let me know down below in the comment section. And like I said, this version is going to come to you guys based on what I've heard this upcoming Wednesday. So that would be, hold on, what I'm doing math. What would be the day? That would be the 18th. is likely going to be the day that you guys can check this out for yourselves. But until then, guys, that's going to do it for me, at least for this one. We'll be back with more yet another Zombie Survivors in the coming days. But if you did enjoy the video, which kindly smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more roguelike action. But for me, guys, I've been Ganyonz. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time.